seems quite common now that the license fee is no longer enforceable by law. People are migrating away from the BBC and are not paying the license fee. I suspect that that's true of a number of people, but I think it's also true that quite a proportion of people have chosen not to pay for the license fee because they think it's unreasonable. They only watch one programme and it's not even on the BBC or something. As it happens, it's the law at the moment in the UK that you should pay a license fee if you want to watch television, basically. An oversimplification perhaps, but a lot of people are choosing not to pay. At one time with television detector vans, you could be found out fairly easily because by and large most people choose to pay the license fee. But with so many people not paying it now, you can't prosecute and put everybody in prison or fine them because there's simply too many people not paying the license fee. For whatever reason, I'm not here to judge I'm not here to judge why people don't pay or won't pay. The fact that it's due to go up again to around about £180 odd a year is another reason why people will choose not to pay. Take for example Netflix. If you don't pay, you don't get to watch the programs. There's no one's going to come down to your house and take you away in a prison van or whatever. You don't pay it, you don't get it. Simple as that. So this is really what the BBC has to do. I mean, the simple way out would be, of course, to just flood the channel with thousands of adverts, much like, unfortunately, most of the world has to tolerate. And some people, I guess, if you're used to it and don't mind adverts every 8 minutes, then I suppose that's fine. But I'm one of the people that like to watch a film or even the news broadcast all the way through without somebody sponsoring this channel is brought to you by this and that. I find it patronising and I hate it. And quite frankly, I won't do it. I won't watch it. I don't watch any channel with advertisements. Now, I live in New Zealand where there is no such thing as sponsored or license fee. There used to be a license fee, but that's now long gone. So every channel is full of advertisements. Even the news is broken up with advertisements. And at the end of the programme you get this and that sponsored by so-and-so, shirt was given to them by this person or that person. And quite frankly, it's free to watch, but I choose not to watch it. So what's my answer for the poor old BBC? As an expat, I have to jump over quite a few hoops to be able to watch some BBC programmes. Obviously, I can't actually pay a licence fee because I live in New Zealand, but the iPlayer, BBC do their best to stop people like me watching it, but I still manage to do so, and we won't go into that. I don't like doing it like this, but unfortunately this is what I have to do. The BBC has really only one answer. The licence fee has to go because, quite frankly, there's no way of enforcing it. And what I'm going to suggest will be horrendously controversial. Lots of people will complain, but lots of people are complaining now. They will say they don't watch it, they don't want it, why should they pay for it? And I agree. If you don't want something, you shouldn't have to pay for it. So the answer would be fill it full of advertisements, but please don't let that be the answer. Now, I've just been looking at some figures, ironically, from the BBC on their new YouTube outing. So they're sort of heading towards that direction now. And they're saying that the BBC no longer has the monopoly of viewing numbers, and YouTube, which I am part of in a very small way, is the way people are going. The BBC's operation, in my humble opinion, has got completely out of control. That's partially the reason, apart from non-paying of licence fees, that they have this problem. They're trying to appeal to everyone. So they've got so many minority channels where there's 10 or 12 people watching, and clearly this is unsustainable. They broadcast terrestrially using high-power transmitters that cost a fortune to run, both in manpower, electricity, and the costs of all these towers and aerials you see everywhere. This has got to go. They have to go to 100% online. That will save an enormous amount of power, electricity, and it has to be like that because there has to be a way of making money, and it would be a subscription only service. No free TV. Talk about radio presently. But at the moment, if you look at the BBC, it has regional transmitters, dozens and dozens of them. It has so many programs, BBC 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've lost count of news channels and things like that. These have to be, if you talk about, let's say we talk about Netflix, it has one channel, no terrestrial, I can't even say it, no terrestrial transmitters at all. And it's basically on demand. The channels, the station is there and all the programs are listed, and you decide what you want to watch when you want to watch it. Now, to me, that makes perfect sense. Everything's listed in one location. You watch what you want when you want, and you pay a subscription for this. This has to make sense. All this free-to-air stuff using transmitters all over the country have got to go. They really have. The BBC, if it wants to have a number of channels, they should still be online, much like the iPlayer is now. And you don't need to have a live broadcast. By and large, people want to watch, and this is how I do my own viewing. I wake up in the morning and I want to see the news, see what stupid things have gone on in the world, which is quite extensive these days, but I want to watch the news when I want. And during that time, I will go to the bathroom, do my ablution, and I can just put it on pause and continue the news when I'm dressed and ready to face the world. And I'm sure that is the way many people watch these days. The BBC really needs to get back to maybe BBC One and BBC Two, and possibly a news channel. If the government wants the BBC to make multiple news channels in many languages, They should pay for that because it's something the government should do. It shouldn't be part of something the general public pays for. And these news channels are worldwide. There's no, this is only available to viewers in the UK. That's a nonsense. These days, it's like Netflix. I keep using that as an example. But you can get that in virtually in any part of the world. Admittedly, it's not always the same content, but near enough. And the BBC don't need all this regional stuff. And if the government wants it to have news channels in various languages, then the government or subscriptions from that country pay for it. And the BBC's 1 and 2, they're not restricted to the UK. They should be available to any part of the world on a subscription. Nothing is free in this planet. So why restrict it? The BBC, for whatever you personally might think, is very well respected all over the world. And I in New Zealand, as an expat particularly, value it tremendously. I actually can't pay for it here. They won't allow me legally to watch BBC programmes. And they've even stopped, to a large extent, me listening to the radio. What the BBC has to do, it has to be subscription, because there's no other way to make sure that if you watch it, you pay for it. And if you don't pay for it, you don't watch it. Simple thing. And you can't do that with over-the-air transmissions, because it would mean doing basically a Sky, where you have to have a decoder, again extra money, and you've still got all the infrastructure, all those transmitters. Much better to be just online, whether you watch it on a telephone or on your TV. That's your option. And it's a worldwide thing. You don't discriminate from any country, even if they want to watch it in Russia. If they pay for it, they can. So we now have BBC only online. All the extra studios all around the countries, all the regional stuff that costs a fortune and doesn't make any money, shut it down. This is what the BBC used to be like, with just one or later in 2 channels. We don't need all these channels. It used to be you could turn the BBC One, or just BBC television as it was known, and you'd start at 5 o'clock with Children's Hour, news at 6 o'clock, and you had the station on all night because there was no repeats. There was no need for repeats because there was only one channel. And it needs to go back to that. But everything on demand. All the regional languages, all that stuff, gone. Unless, of course, there is a demand for it that can be paid for, and it would be provided in that way. You don't have any programs or any stations that don't get enough subscriptions to make it worthwhile. If Netflix couldn't make money, they'd shut it down. And that's the way the BBC has to look at this. The BBC should concentrate on making its own programmes, much the same as Netflix does. If they can do it, why can't the BBC do it? They've always been renowned for quality dramas and things like that, and they now have a worldwide audience. No worrying about is Voice of America or whatever going to show their programs or whatever. They take it away from all that, and anybody in the world with an internet connection will be able to watch it. Radio is another matter. I don't know how that's going to be funded. Again, the simple way would be to fill it full of advertisements, but then I'd stop listening to it anyway. I don't listen to anything that's full of advertisements. It just drives me mad. The only way you could make that advertisement free, again, would be to shut down all the broadcasting that you'd receive live on your transistor radio or whatever, and it would be online only. And again, it would be a subscription service. Whether it would be, well, the BBC would have to shut down lots and lots of all the radio that they broadcast, all the regional networks, the money they would save by shutting down all the local radio stations. They could always make it a choice of a subscription, but again, it would just come through the internet. It's really the only way it can be done, because if it goes over the airwaves, you have no control over it. Anyone can listen free of charge. So you've only got two alternatives. It's either funded by a license fee, but we've talked about that. People won't pay it. And you can't put half the country in prison. You simply can't. And that is the way it will be heading. Because already there are more people evading the license and getting away with it because they can. If you think you're not going to get caught, you're not going to pay it. And you can't really blame people for that. So you take away that option. You don't have a license fee. Because at the moment, radio is part of that license fee. So if you remove that, how are you going to fund the radio stations? Well, as I mentioned, the worst way would be to fill it full of advertisements, and then it becomes just like every other channel in the world, basically. It doesn't differentiate the BBC from everybody or all other broadcasters. So it would be one of the first to actually have a subscription for radio. But again, the only way you could do that is to make it online only. You pay for it, you get it. You don't pay for it, you don't get it. You listen to one of the millions of advertisement-full stations currently on air. Now, I realise that what I've said here is somewhat controversial, and I think there's going to be hundreds of comments in the comments of people disagreeing. Oh, I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that. Well, I'm not doing this. This is just my personal opinion of what can happen. Because you've either got to pay on a license fee, or you have advertisements, or you have a subscription. They are really the only options. The government is not going to fund it. Now, it might be possible for the government to decide to do a news channel, both in radio form and for worldwide consumption, which could probably be free of advertisements and free to view, as, if you like, a perk from the government. But they're not going to fund Are You Being Served or any program, because that's, why would they? Because if they did that, then Netflix would say, oh, why doesn't the government help us? I'm afraid the world now, these days, is you pay for it or you don't have it. The days of things being free have gone. Right with your opinion, if you think my idea is a good idea, or if you think it's a terrible idea. But there's no good saying, oh, I think you're wrong, because unless you put forward your theory, criticising me makes no sense. Anyway, that's enough from me for today. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it.